Some people cast their eyes to the heavens, hoping they might witness something extraordinary. Others refuse to believe that we are not alone. And then there are those who do more than just watch the skies. They reach into the darkness and call the unknown to them. Through meditation, focused intention, and a controversial practice known as CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, they attempt to initiate direct, cooperative contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. No waiting for strange lights to appear, no hoping to be chosen. This is humanity making the first move. Tonight, Chris Mendace joins us to share how he has summoned the unknown, witnessed the response, and experienced what happens when something out there appears to answer the call. Tonight, the skies get a lot smaller, and this time it isn't ET phoning home. It's a direct call from the human race to outer space. This is Aliens, the Summoning on the Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney.
He won't float. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Good evening, my darklings. Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like I've just been doing alien and UFO show after alien and UFO show, but there is so much that is going on around us. A few weeks ago, our good friend Scotty Davis joined us right here live on this program to discuss a situation and something that he witnessed firsthand. And it changed him fundamentally, spiritually, mentally. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper on this. So I ask you, my darklings, if you could call them down, if you could make direct contact and see these things for yourselves, would you do that? Or would you be concerned that it wouldn't stop there? That once you've painted that target on yourself, maybe you become a beacon to a being that won't ever leave. That would be my concern, in all honesty, just afraid, not because I'm roguishly handsome and what alien wouldn't want to hang out with me, but more along the lines of, if we call them in, we're giving that permission, we're giving that intention, we're setting that base. What does that covenant mean? How open are we making ourselves? Well, hopefully we'll get some of those answers tonight. Our guest is joining me right now, Chris Mendace. Chris, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's kind of interesting to be able to talk about this openly, but yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, certainly. I know you're friends with our friend Scotty Davis, and he speaks highly of you. And again, skeptical of the possibilities that we could call forth these forces. Yet here's a man who spends his life calling to the dead and speaking to the dead. It's funny to me where we draw those delineation lines. Is it more for comfort or more for our own mental acuity to think, well, you know what, this I can go into. If I go too deep into this, it opens up a door I'm not sure I know I want to walk through or I want to experience. How old were you, Chris, when you opened up a fascination with the spiritual, with the alien race or whatever else is around you?
So I was actually younger. I started off in Puerto Rico. That's where I used to live. I was there till I was around 9 years old. As far as like the paranormal aspect of things, I was always told not to really believe about it, not really to talk about it, including that, UFOs type of activity. I'll backtrack you a little bit over to my house that we used to live in Puerto Rico. There was times at nighttime where I would be sleeping, and I was younger. I would be sleeping in the room with my mom and my dad at the time. And we would have all sorts of weird things happen outside the house. We were in the middle of nowhere in Puerto Rico, like farmland. Very dark, very secluded area. And I don't know if you've ever been to Puerto Rico or not, but some of the houses in Puerto Rico always had, they never really had glass windows. It was always like tin windows where you would have to kind of move the little handles and the windows, little tin windows would open and then close.
Sure.
So late at nighttime we would hear weird and like strange sounds coming from like the outside of the house, and a lot of times they would bang the windows, and we would hear like different type of weird little talking outside the window, which we couldn't really explain at the time. And we put it off as if it was nothing. Obviously, I was younger, I was scared, and I was told that it's nothing. But for whatever reason, the main event usually happened with my sister. It would follow any room that she would move into. This thing would smack the window in the room that she was in, like almost like as if it knew she was in that room. But as I got older, I was always, told you don't see that, you don't hear that, you don't talk about that. There's nothing, nothing really happens. Even some of the paranormal activity I had. So I kind of started growing out of that mentality and trying to pretty much find some sort of explanation, trying to figure out a way to explain the things that were happening, even though there really weren't much explanation for it. And it wasn't until about
was your family afraid that if you embraced it, that if you were interested in it, it might shine a brighter light on them and on that house and your family? Or was it religious upbringing that just we're going to shield ourselves from this and not necessarily deny it, but we are just not going to admit it?
I would say it's more of a religious upbringing in a way. It was almost like it was looked or frowned upon if you spoke about it, if you said anything. So that was one of the things that we just never really spoke about. Till this day, my mom doesn't talk about it. She seems to know a lot more than what she puts out, but she still doesn't talk about any of that stuff. It wasn't really till 2017 that I had my first actual true paranormal experience that kind of started bringing back some of those memories and making me think of that time when I was younger. And like, it caused me to become more interested in the paranormal, wanting to know more, and kind of opened up a whole new, I wouldn't even say it was a hobby. It was more of a sort of curiosity in a way, trying to figure out exactly what was out there, trying to figure out what is causing some of these things that are unexplained to happen. Because to be quite honest with you, at first I thought I was going nuts. That the house that I was in 2017, the first experience I ever had was a little girl trying to talk, and there was no kids. I had kids at the time, but there was nobody in the house. It was just me by myself. And it continued to happen. And at the time I was going through like a pretty stressful situation, but I don't know if that stress from all that situation that I was going through kind of opened up this whole other, I guess, opened up my third eye in a way.
When you heard this voice, was it audible enough that you could understand one word, a full sentence? What was that like?
So that experience was actually a little kid, sounded like my daughter, coming up to me and saying, "Hey, can I have some chips?" And it was clear as day. And I'm watching TV at the time, and the TV, if I can picture it for you, is a TV, and there's a hallway right next to the TV, which it kind of combined all the 3 bedrooms together in the bathroom, and that's where the voice was coming from. So automatically I'm like, "No, you can't have no chips," thinking it was my kid, and not really thinking about it. There's nobody here at the house.
Right.
And then it hit me. It's like, holy crap, like there's nobody here. And that continued to happen throughout, several different nights. You would hear footsteps walking back and forth in the hallway.
Now, when you heard the voice, because, you're in the comfort of your own home, you hear something like that, you initially think it's your daughter. When you think back, do you realize that wasn't her voice? Or do you still to this day feel like that was her voice communicating to you?
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't her voice, but just being used to the fact that I have my kids in the house, I just automatically reacted to it, thinking it was my kid, and it wasn't my daughter. That led to one of the first like paranormal groups that I ever like even talked to. It was a buddy of mine who was running his own paranormal group at the time, and I had him come over to the house and do his little investigation. And at the time I was making fun of it because I somewhat believed in it, but I was still skeptical. And until this day, I'm still like a skeptical believer in a way, because I like trying to find the explanation of things. And if I can't find it, then there's no explanation. But once he came over to the house, he started investigating, and within the first 20 minutes, all five of the batteries of the recorders that he put out completely died. He had one of those little Zoom recorders. He placed 5 of them all around the house. And literally within the first 20 minutes, all the batteries died. He starts changing the battery. He changed the battery, started in my living room and worked his way up to my room, which was in the hallway where I hear all these different voices. And clear as day, I hear a woman saying hello. And it sounded like, the best way to explain it is...
Now, you're hearing it out loud, or are you hearing
loud.
it on the recording? Okay, so DVP, direct voice phenomena.
Correct.
Okay.
So I looked at him as he was changing the battery, and I'm like, yo, did you hear that? His name was Mike. I'm like, Mike, did you hear that? He looks back at me. He's like, dude, I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about. So immediately I start saying, like, dude, I'm not crazy. I know I heard that. We go back. We take the recorder in the area where I heard the voice coming from. And what it sounded like, the voice itself sounded like those old school microphones, like the little toy microphones with the spring inside of it that has some sort of echoey, like an echo sound to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back. He changes the batteries to that. Well, he had changed the batteries to that one recorder, and he plays the recorder back, and clear as day, you hear the same exact voice of a female saying hello in the same exact tone that I explained to him. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Like, it's something that I'm going through, something that I'm actually like hearing that not many people can hear. And from there on, I was hooked. I started wanting to know more, and I've been investigating ever since. And that
when did it turn then to alien or UFO and extraterrestrial craft? When did that fire begin burning?
So throughout my entire life, I've always had weird experiences in the sky. I remember like sitting in Puerto Rico and like watching the sky and seeing these weird like blue lights flying across, and you would see them almost like flash. It was almost like I would say almost like an explosion in a way, and it would turn blue and just disappear. And it wasn't just me that would see this. There would be like other people with me at the time that would be able to watch it. But for the most part, and when I started realizing was that anytime I thought about seeing one of those objects in the sky, or like even just put my mind to focus on being able to see one of them, they would appear and then they would disappear. It wasn't, I want to say probably about 4 years ago. I was at work driving around, and I happen to look up at the sky, and I see what looks like 2 big orange street lights. Do you ever seen like a regular street light, how it lights up like very orangey looking color? I ended up seeing 2 of them over top of like this apartment complex, and at the time it looked like they were tandem. So I thought at first, having flight experience, because I'm a student pilot, so at that time I was flying in the area, and like I would kind of keep an eye in the sky to try to figure out like whether or not, like, you know, there's new planes coming in or whatever the case may be. And this looked like 2 wings of a plane literally flying together, and they're flying in tandem. And as I'm looking at them, they somehow split, and they start doing this weird dance around each other, and then they shoot off and they disappear in the sky. A couple minutes later, we started getting calls for it. Other people saw it in the area, and they started calling in for it, which caused my curiosity even more. I'm like, how did I see that? You know what I mean? And
right.
There's so many people here that really didn't see it. There's probably like 5 or 6 people that called saying that they saw shooting fireballs coming out of the sky was one of the reports that we got. And at the time, having knowledge with the air traffic control tower, which is right near the area where I work, I ended up calling the air traffic control tower over the phone. I'm like, hey, listen, like, I just saw this in the sky. Like, is there anything that you guys maybe showed up on radar? Is there anything that came up? And they confirmed nothing came up on the radar, and they couldn't see anything. And a couple minutes later, there was a couple of helicopters flying around, checking the area, making sure it wasn't like a crashed craft or anything like that.
Right.
So fast forward to about a year, probably like a year later, I had explained the story to my girlfriend, and I pretty much told her, like, hey, listen, like, I saw this really weird thing in the sky. And she's used to me telling her stories, and she doesn't believe half the stories I tell her until like she, you know, witnesses it herself.
Right.
So we're coming back, driving back to the house late at night, and clear as day, I see these 2 bright balls far away again, very same exact colors, like it's very, very orange looking color. And the best way I can explain it, the best way that I've ever seen somebody explain it was at that UFO museum up in Napanoch, New York.
Oh, sure.
There's an exhibit there that has these very similar lights that are the same exact color of what I saw. So we're driving back to the house, and I see them again in the sky, and I explain to her, I'm like, hey, listen, those are the same exact thing I saw the night that this whole thing happened. I said, keep an eye on them. I guarantee you they're going to do this weird dance, and then they're going to shoot off once you start looking at them. And sure enough, we're looking at them, and they do this weird dance, and they shoot off and disappear again. So she saw it at that time. I mean, she couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it. My kids were with me at the time. They'd seen it too. So about like 6 months later, we're taking a drive over to Connecticut. It was me, her, a good friend of mine who used to be my old partner in my old department, and his girlfriend. And I'm telling him the story because we're catching up. I'm like, he's asking about the paranormal and all the other stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I saw this weird thing in the sky, and I literally explained to him both experiences that we had. And in the middle of me explaining to him that experience, these two balls of lights reappear again while we're all in the car. And they got to observe it, and they got to watch it. They fly together again. They do this weird dance around each other, and then they shoot off again and disappear. Same exact movement all 3 times. And it always happened almost like as I was talking about that particular incident. So that got me more motivated and got me to think more about it. I'm like, hey, listen, like, it's kind of odd that I've talked about it. I've explained it. And every single time that I've explained it, these things have happened. So I started going out late at night and looking into the sky. And then the more I started looking and focusing on it, the more these things started appearing. And then they would start appearing. And me being cautious the way I'm cautious, I start trying to look up to see, like, what type of telescopes or different satellites going by the areas. Like, is there any launch that are going on? Is there anything weird? Like, just to try to explain what I'm seeing.
Right.
There's no explanation for it. There's no way that there's that many satellites. And once I'm focusing on it, you'll start seeing them. They appear out of the blue. They'll literally fly across. And the more you focus on what you're seeing on these little, the best way to explain them is if you ever seen a satellite, the way the satellite moves is very similar to that, but it's actually very bright in color. But the more you focus on them, the more you start seeing these weird flashes of lights coming from the entire sky. And every person that have seen them with me have somehow experienced different color lights. I've always seen them in white lights. It's almost like an afterburner. If you see like an afterburner or like a fighter jet, when they go supersonic,
right,
and they shoot off, it's more of like that flash. But to me, is white. When I brought Scott, when Scott was looking at him, he was describing it as seeing like multiple different colors coming across. But it's almost like weird lightning in the sky. But it's the only way you can see is out of the corner of your eye. You're not looking at them directly. You're not seeing it directly. But those flashes, you're seeing them out of the corner of your eye happening as you're focusing in these other things that are flying across the sky, which is unexplainable. I mean, I haven't been able to explain it. So that led to me trying to explain more of it and trying to figure out, like, can I flash the laser at it? Like, what would happen if I flashed the laser at it?
Right.
And the first time I ever flashed the laser at it, they started avoiding the lasers. They were no longer moving straight. They were literally avoiding the lasers. They're going around the lasers, and the more you try to focus the laser on it, the more they would move away from it. I've had it several times in this new house. I've had them like flash like either a weird light back at me or a weird laser. And I actually got Scott to experience that this past time. He was just with me at the Pine Barrens. I don't know if he told you that story where we started focusing on it, and he was telling me, like, dude, I haven't, ever since we saw him that one night, I've been trying to focus on him. I haven't been able to see him. And we sat down by the bonfire. It's completely dark outside. I'm like, all right, we'll just focus in that area. And he started focusing on that area, and sure enough, like, you would see like 3 or 4 of them just appear. And we were messing with the laser, and this light looked like at one point it was coming directly towards us, and it kept getting closer. And he's like, "Oh man, this is it!" Like he starts freaking out. I'm freaking out too at this point. Like it's getting closer, and as it says getting closer, it just disappears.
So when you say it disappears, does it take off, or does it like it's coming at you and then all of a sudden just snuffed out? It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, it just completely disappears. You don't see any afterburners. You don't see anything. Like the light just completely goes dark, and there's nothing there anymore.
We have to take a quick break. I do want to address for our listeners and our viewers. There are many of the UFO watchers, sky watchers that will employ these lasers. I do implore you to be very careful because, first of all, it is illegal to use these laser pointers and point them at airplanes, especially after 9/11, which we're coming up on the 25th anniversary. They become real incensed by things that are bothering the airlines in any way, shape, or form. So I would suggest everyone out there to be extremely careful and not use laser pointers at flying craft unless you are watching a mapped out screen and know that there's no planes, there's no satellites. It's just something that, I've been out to the Isetti Ranch and have seen these things and have tracked them with lasers, and they have flashed back at us. Again, the one thing that is pretty telling about this, you're in a centralized area. They can see the laser. And if you're hitting them with it in an aircraft, they can pretty much tell ground control where these lasers are coming from. Cops would be around you immediately because they would be, telling you that. That's why it's intriguing that he's doing this, signaling these light anomalies, and they're signaling back or trying to avoid. It's obvious that these are not actual craft, or at least not our airplanes. Nothing that would normally include getting the police or FAA and everybody else on your ass. So be very careful, folks, when you're doing that. Go out, watch the skies. Be very careful when you decide to employ lasers. Leave it to people like Chris and some of the other experts out there that know the area, know what they're doing. Just be extremely careful. I'd hate to see you go to prison because of a Federal Aviation Administration law getting you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got a lot more to ask. And I would like to go back, Chris, when we come back. You said whatever room your sister was in, it seemed that that's where something would be knocking on the window. Something would be coming in. I'm just curious, at this point in your life now, as adults, does she have memories of these things? Does it still happen? What do you make of that? We'll cover that and more when we return with the summoning. We'll talk more about aliens and our way to communicate with the skies right after this.
Did you know that radio just got a little extraterrestrial? That's right, Dave Schrader is back on radio with the Paranormal 360 every Sunday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Central on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station. Just download the Odyssey app and look for the WCCO logo, follow the station, and listen live. That's the Paranormal 360 on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Dave Schrader. This is Paranormal 60. Chris Mendace, our guest this evening. Chris, let's go back to your sister. Does she have any memory of these things and the activity that was taking place?
At the time, she was completely terrified. Obviously, she didn't want to talk about it. Till this day, she doesn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried talking to her about it a couple times, and she just completely dismisses it as if nothing ever happened. But she just doesn't talk about it anymore, and she doesn't even say anything regarding it.
Does your family know now that you are actively pursuing and watching the skies, hoping to interact with these things? And if so, what have they said to you about it?
Honestly, they find it intriguing at this point. I mean, they're a little more open to it.
Mm-hmm.
But they just go along with it at this point. They can't really change what I do, and they're just all supportive.
All right.
It's best way to put it right now.
Now, I want to go back to before the break. I mentioned being cautious when you're using laser pointers in the sky and doing those things. You know that with the FAA, you got to be very careful, and one mess up can put you behind bars. Whether you think you're communicating with aliens or not, you have to be careful and understand what you're doing. I was at the Isetti Ranch having experiences like you're describing, watching the sky come alive, the billions of grains of rice in the sky, you figure there's no way you're going to notice one little thing moving. And it's amazing how you begin to see and perceive, and multiple people are doing it at the same time. You're able to track these lights. They will follow like a satellite, but then bank at a strange angle and then take off. They're there when satellites don't do that. And spy ships, spy planes are not going to signal back and flash to you. So a lot of the things that people love to put on it, saying, well, you're probably a spy planes, and say you don't know how much stuff is up there. Again, common sense would tell you a spy plane's not going to be like, oh, look, they're flashing us. Vladimir, let's signal back, right? They're not going to do that. And I apologize to all of our Russian listeners who were offended by my accent. Horrible accent. But you see that, and James Gilliland at the Assetti Ranch told me, now that you are watching the skies, now that they know you're interested, if you keep looking, they will keep showing themselves to you. And I have had it on and off for the last 20 years where there are times when I can look to the skies and see these things. And I've been with large groups, small groups, and by myself. So it does become, I don't know if it's just that now I'm more acutely aware. Are they really showing themselves more to me, or am I just paying closer attention? What do you think is the case, since this is something you can do pretty readily?
Of course. Real quick, just going to touch back real quick on the lasers in the sky. If you guys are going to do that, make sure you guys there's an app out there called Flight Radar, and it gives you a live feed of the airplanes that are going in your area. And that's kind of what I use just to verify that it's not a plane, that it's not anything flying above. I also have the different apps called For Flight, but not many people have it. That gives you like all the flight plans for the area, like any planes that are coming in or out of like any nearby airport that you're in, including private airports. So that's when I do these laser things, I make sure that there's no plane in the area, first of all, that there's nothing like that in the areas. Like you said, it'll get you jammed up really quickly. But telepathically, honestly, I think that you can communicate with these beings telepathically. Like if you think about it, and like I told Scott, like the first time we ever did it, I said, if you think about it, you just got to think about being able to see them, and they will appear. And you would focus on one area, and that area that you're focusing on, you'll start seeing them. And that's when he did it the first time when we were in Pennsylvania, over at that event in Laredo, Pennsylvania. I'll touch. I think he already kind of touched the story, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll touch a little bit on that story as well if you want me to.
Please go ahead. I'd love to hear it from your perspective.
So we were investigating the Doll's House in Pennsylvania. Me and him kind of split up at first. He made it back to the Airbnb before I did. I get back to the Airbnb, and we had talked about, watching these aliens in the sky. And at this point, he was like, "Yeah, it's kind of late, but yeah, we'll go outside and we'll see what we can see." So we went to the back of the Airbnb, and while we started looking at the sky, I want to say it was about like 1:30 in the morning. These things just randomly started appearing, and that's when he started getting intrigued, and he starts watching all of these weird lights coming across. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say it was well over like 150 to like 200 that we saw that night. But as we're seeing these things, we start doing the whole playing with the laser to see if we can, and that's when he starts getting a little more intriguing, because he starts seeing the different direction, different angles that they're taking to avoid these lasers, how they're turning. And it's almost like an abrupt turn. Like they'll go straight, and as soon as the laser hits, it just completely moves like really quickly. It's not like your normal typical airplane movement. So you start seeing this, and as we're watching these things in the sky, we start hearing footsteps around us. And mind you, it's open field behind us. We can see we're on a higher level, so we can see the entire field. We can see that there's nothing around us. There's like a church on the one side. So as we're starting hearing like all these footsteps, the more that we kept trying to communicate and see, the more the atmosphere started kind of coming alive around us in a way. There's a times that we started hearing several growls in the area, literally within close proximity of us, that we couldn't explain. And there was three of us. It was Scott, myself, and my buddy Sean. And while we're looking at these things, or trying to look for these items or objects in the sky, like I said, the footsteps. We start hearing footsteps on the steps. The growl was pretty much what was a little scarier because it was very close to us, and it sounded like a very deep growl, like not a friendly growl in a way. Not that
Right.
there's any friendly growls, but so as we're seeing all this stuff, that's when he started noticing the different colors in the sky, the different flashes that are going on, and just before you know, we lost time. We went from 1:30 in the morning, and we would have thought we were out there for maybe like 20, 30 minutes. It was 4:30 in the morning by the time we were done, like 4:30, almost 5 o'clock. To the point where we were like literally watching the sky for almost like 3.5 hours, and didn't realize, completely lost that whole track of time, and it was a little unsettling because it felt like it was 20 minutes. We didn't realize we were out there for that long, and all three of us felt the same exact way. So that leads us to the following night. We did our whole event again the following night, came back to the Airbnb. And at this point, we're all sort of tired, but one of the neighbors left the light on in the back. I guess we were being too loud listening to all this stuff the night prior. So we're like, all right, you know what? So let me try to find, we're in the middle of the mountains in Pennsylvania. Let me try to find like a secluded location for us to go to.
Right.
So I found it was a state park, and it had a couple docks in the area, and a nice, decent parking lot with literally no light pollution whatsoever.
Okay.
So we drive there. It's about 25 minutes from the Airbnb. We get there, and it completely, when I mean like, it's completely dark. Like you can't even see the hand in front of your face. So I was like, you know what? Let me turn the truck off, and let's see. Like I have one of those big panoramic roofs. They're
The moon roof on your car?
the moon roof.
Yeah.
So I opened the moon roof, and we're all sitting in the car or in the truck looking up. And right around this point is when we started noticing like a triangular shape. It was 3 lights. So it was one light in front and 2 lights in the back. It was the shape of a triangle. So we start noticing that. I'm like, look at that weird triangle. That wasn't there earlier. Let's try seeing how it reacts to the laser. So I start shining a laser at it, and one of the lights will dim as the other light, like as the laser hit it, the front light would dim. The 2 lights in the back would become brighter, but then once the laser would hit the back lights, those lights would dim. And it was almost like it was playing a game, like just disappearing and reappearing. And I actually have that on video. And you can clearly see like the three lights almost appearing, disappearing, appearing, and disappearing. And at this time, like while we're doing this and playing with this triangular shape object in the sky, we all just start feeling like, what's the best way to put it? Anxious. We start feeling like there's things coming up to the windows. We start feeling like we're becoming more and more paranoid as we're doing it.
Like you're not just the only ones that are watching.
Not the only ones that are watching, but not the only ones there. Like
Right.
we felt like there was something there with us. So my buddy Sean decides to he brought his DR60 and starts doing an EVP session. I was like, you know what? Like I've never done that. I've never like tried to look at some sort of UFO and try to see if we can communicate like using some like the EVP or doing an EVP session. And he does the EVP session and he starts getting response back. Or we start asking like, are you human? Are you non-human? And one of the responses I believe he got back was non-human. And there was the weird growl that we audibly heard the night prior came through on the DR60. There was a couple other things that came through, but what's interesting about that is that Scott has no recollection of that. He was there with us, but has no recollection of the actual
recording
EVP
of these EVPs, right?
Correct.
And what were these EVPs saying? What were the responses you were getting?
So, like when we asked the portion of like, are you human or non-human? It started saying a whole sentence. We couldn't really make out the entire sentence, but part of it sounded like it was trying to say extraterrestrial in 2 different words.
Okay.
Or like there was like a split in between it. And then, like I said, we were getting the growls, and there was a couple other things that came through. I can't remember exactly like the exact words of what was said, but it was definitely responding back. But at this point, we all started getting extremely paranoid. We felt like there was people right all up on our windows. It felt like the entire truck was surrounded by people just watching us from the outside of the windows. So I go to start the truck, and I got a 2025 Ram, so it's a fairly new truck. Doesn't start. It says that the key fob is not being detected. The lights aren't coming on. Nothing's coming on. The only thing that comes on is the dash, and the dash is basically saying no key fob detected. So I had a flashlight with me at the time, so I actually pull out the flashlight and I shove the flashlight outside the moonroof and light up the entire front of us. I think the video captured this part. Through his DR60, we end up getting the fog, something about the fog getting closer. Like I think it said the fog is getting closer, or something along those lines. And sure enough, there was fog that was creeping up to the front of the actual truck. And as soon as I lit the fog up, I was able to actually hit the button again, and the truck started. I was like, all right, we're done. We're leaving. We're going back. And yeah, we didn't look back. We ended up going back to the Airbnb and didn't try doing it again the following night. But it got pretty intense.
You
Then
feel
everything
that.
got
You
weird.
feel like you're being stalked, like there's something surrounding you. What brings you back out to do this again, Chris? For a lot of people, that would feel like, wow, I don't know that I like being the observed. I don't, we kind of started it off with that. What happens when you turn that light on? Is there a danger that now you are in its crosshairs? It knows you and knows where you are.
So the way I look at it is you're trying to understand what these beings are. You're trying to understand exactly what's happening. And if these beings, or whatever you want to call them, are as powerful as we think they are, if they wanted to hurt you, they would have already hurt you. You would have already been like injured or you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it doesn't seem to want to hurt you in a way. It's more of a trying to have some sort of communication. And that's what continues to allow me to want to learn more about it. But it's interesting that after we did both of those, I guess, both nights, our entire weekend completely started getting even weirder and crazier by the minute. Scott and I were supposed to go over to investigate a church, and I forget the name of the place, like the area itself. Somewhere in Pennsylvania. It's like, I want to say it was like an hour and a half from the location we were at in Laredo. It's near Tyrone, Pennsylvania. I can't remember the exact name right now. So we started driving there early in the morning. We left the Airbnb, I want to say around like 10 in the morning. As we're driving there, we stopped to get something to eat. And I started looking at the map, and I'm like, oh man, the old abandoned Pennsylvania turnpike tunnels are on the way there. You want to just stop by and, we'll do like some content, shoot some videos while we're there, try to investigate the tunnels and see if, we capture anything or.
Right.
And he's like, oh, let's do it. So we end up making a pit stop to the tunnel. So I don't know if, did he tell you the story?
Yeah. Yeah. Very strange.
So we made a pit stop. So we pull into the tunnels, and usually when I'm going anywhere, I like looking at the map, and I like looking at an aerial view of the map to see like how the area looks, and like, is there any different, including parking. That's kind of where I'm leading to with this. So I noticed there was two different types of parking on the aerial view of the actual tunnels. The first parking was closer to the road. The other parking actually had to come up on like a very tiny stretch of road, and it opened up to a whole parking lot. So I decided to go all the way up and park at this random parking lot that's closer to the tunnels. So it kind of saved us a walk a little bit. I park, and literally the first minute we park, we made interaction with this guy that was parked there talking about my truck and how he liked the tinted windows. And within that interaction, it just became a whole, I guess, speech about how there's like demonic sigils on the tunnels and how there's all this other stuff,
Right.
that's like spiritual related. But what makes it a little odd is that we're in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, and this lady is talking to us about this with her friend that was there with her. tells us that she has family in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is actually not far from me. So that was automatically a little kind of odd right off the bat. Like, how do you kind of know that we're from New Jersey? And, like, how do you, like, it was just weird. And there's a lot of things that I know personally that are in that area that I can't really talk about live right now.
Right.
So my mind just started automatically, like, not racing, but, like, just thinking outside the box. So we start investigating. We walk into the tunnels and we meet this other random guy that comes up. But what's weird about it, before we met this guy, there was this lady that was walking by the tunnel. And as she's walking by the tunnel, she's screaming to this kid and yelling at this kid. And the kid's name is Christian. Well, that's my full name, Christian. That was kind of odd. But it was almost like she was doing it on purpose in a way for us to notice. So we meet this guy that shows up, gives us like 4 different stories of what he does for work, which none of it makes sense. Every story was different. And
was there anything off-putting about him specifically? Did he look odd, act odd, aside from telling you multiple lies and fabricating what he does and where he's from?
Honestly, no. So, like, I'm a pretty good investigator, and I like talking and actually understanding people's brain and how they speak and kind of like building a profile on a person. It's the best way I can explain it. This guy was probably, I want to say, 20 times better than me. He was the most nonchalant guy, came off very friendly. Like, my guard was down. Like, that, I was like, man, this guy's like cool. Like,
Right.
He's bringing his kid here, and because the first story he gave us was that he was bringing his kid over to State College, bringing her to college so that I guess she starts getting ready for the college, and he decided he wanted to stop by and check this tunnel out that he helped build back in the day, and well, none of that was true, which we don't think it was, because he gave us 3 different stories of what he did for work, but each individual time that he gave us a story, the story of what he was doing kept getting closer to where I live here in New Jersey. I don't know. Did
Almost,
Scott tell you that part?
Scotty had mentioned that, right? Almost like he's letting you know where you are, letting you
Correct.
know. Yeah.
It's almost like talking in codes.
Right.
Well, what makes it even weirder is that he knew that I had 2 kids. He knew that Scott had kids. He knew what kind of car I drove. This is all like shortly after the investigation. But what makes it even, I guess, weirder in a way was the simple fact that he decided to go walk into the tunnels by himself, and out of nowhere he comes back out and says it was too creepy, blah, blah, blah. And he wanted to know if he can investigate with us because he found out we were doing paranormal investigations. Like, sure. Like, I mean, the guy was friendly. We brought him with us. There was that one time that I got a little weirded out by him in the middle of the investigation. And if you watch Scott's video, you actually see me take my backpack off and bring my backpack to my front because, but
Yeah,
he's sitting.
You're getting the radar. The spidey sense was tingling. Something was off.
Yes.
Huh?
But what's weird about it is that every single person that was in that tunnel at that time that we were investigating completely disappeared from the minute he started walking into the tunnel with us. Once again, we lost track of time. I think we got to the tunnel. I want to say right around 1:00. We were supposed to be at our other location to investigate by 6. We were still an hour away from that location, and we still had to stop at the hotel, which was another 35 minutes away from that location, and drop our stuff off and head there. Long story short, we did our investigation, come to look at the clock, and it was closer to like 5:00. Completely lost that track of time. No idea like how we ended up in that tunnel for as long as we did. And then as we're walking back out, hold on, let me backtrack because there's one other thing. I don't know if Scott told you this. He was very, very adamant about wanting to take pictures of us with his phone, and he did. And then he wanted to use our phones to take pictures of us as we were doing things. And being the friendly guy he was, I handed him my phone. He took pictures of us with my phone. He took pictures of us with Scott's phone. And this all of this thinking and everything started coming up once we had our final experience for that whole weekend. So we ended up walking back to the truck. We're walking back to the parking lot area. And just to remind you, there's 2 different parking lots. He didn't park in the same parking lot we parked at. There's obviously my parking lot and then the parking lot closest to the road. And we're walking back to my truck, and that's when he's like, "Oh yeah, you have a nice truck, by the way. I like your truck." Well, how do you know that's my truck? I get it's the only truck in the parking lot, but how do you know that we parked here per se? You weren't here when we parked. The only people that were there were those 2 people that we encountered right at the beginning that made the same exact statement saying that they liked my truck. It's like, how do you know that? Which still to this day we still don't know, but we have an idea, but we don't know.
Do you think this is an encounter with one of the men in black? Do you think in that kind of essence, although he's not dressed like the men in black, he seems to be kind of following that very enigmatic, weird approach?
Yeah, so one of the things, I notice things when I talk to people. One of the things I noticed was the simple fact that he said he wasn't there to hike. He wasn't there to walk around. He was just driving in the area, and he decided to stop by. Well, first of all, if you decide to stop by, you're not going to have hiking shoes on. You're not going to have hiking shorts on. You're not going to have a hiking shirt that says, "I love hiking," or whatever the shirt said. The guy was ready to walk. Like, he was ready to go hiking, but you weren't planning on stopping there. That just doesn't really...
Something's not jiving, right? Yeah.
Right. And then you give us 3 different stories of what you do for work. And one of the stories is the LiDAR. That he maps out different locations in LiDAR and helps to build park. And one of the parks that he mentioned was one of the parks near my house that he was currently working on. So that leads us back to...
Not necessarily a thinly veiled threat, but he kept moving the bar closer and closer to you, almost as though, like you said, coded, he's letting you know he knows who you are. He knows
Correct.
where you're from.
Correct. And then one thing I forgot...
We have to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll pick up from there and have you take us on to the next part of the journey. Hold tight, folks. We've got more to share. We may go into the director's edition tonight and go a little over our 60-minute mark. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Paranormal 60 right after this. And welcome back to the program. This is Paranormal 60. I'm Dave Schrader. My guest, Chris Mendace, is here talking to us about a very weird set of circumstances during an investigation and a person that he came into contact with. We're also going to get into a little bit more of the summoning of these craft. And does he have advice for any of us that may want to have this type of experience? What should we do? How should we do it? What is a safe way? We'll talk about that. And are there any safeguards we should take? Go ahead, Chris. You said you had another piece of the puzzle you wanted to put in for us regarding the experience that you were having with this gentleman and the investigations and everything that were going on.
Right. So we ended up leaving the tunnels. We were extremely late to the location we're going to, which was the church. We stop over at the hotel, drop our stuff off. We start kind of like looking back at everything that has happened up to this point. And one of the things I didn't mention, I don't know if Scott mentioned this to you, about while we were at the event after our first experience for the night, we ended up meeting a Space Force soldier.
He mentioned that.
Tell you about that.
Yeah, what are the odds that you're out doing this, having had these experiences, and somebody just openly admits to you that he's one of the SpaceX or Space Force military personnel?
But then he starts giving us information on the things that we're seeing. So he starts telling us, "Hey, listen, like, there's things that I know that we can't talk about," and he was sort of like more open with me when he was talking to me about it. And he was telling me that there's some sort of, I don't even know if I can say this live, but that apparently they have some sort of tracking method that they use to track these weird crafts that appear. They have numbering method. They number these different aircrafts anytime they appear, and when they reappear, like they somehow ping into the system that they have, and they're able to like kind of track the locations where they're appearing and disappearing from, which was interesting. Because how do you know it's the same aircraft? Like, there's got to be a way that you're specifically tracking them. But he wasn't going into too much details when I started pushing a little more. But then he started kind of wanting to become a part of our investigation that we're going to, which was the church. He sort of like invited himself to it. And to the point where the actual lady that runs the church was like, no, you're not coming. Like you're not coming to investigate. These guys are coming, and that's it. So we get to the church. We finally get there. We start investigating the church, and we're doing a paranormal investigation again at the church. But then that's where things kind of take a weird turn.
This is where things take a weird turn? Chris, you and I have different levels of weirdness, because so far everything you've done is weird. Every experience you've had is weird. So if this is where it gets weird, hold on to your seats, kids. I don't know where we're going next.
So we're investigating in the middle of the church, and I start like, I wouldn't say fading in and out, but like I'm like half listening to what they're saying, half not listening, like almost like my mind's elsewhere.
Right. Gee, I can't imagine why, Chris.
So I start feeling this weird hands on the back of my, like on my back, almost like pushing me. While we were in the church, and I tell Scott this, I'm like, hey, listen, like I keep feeling like I'm being touched, tugged on, and pushed. The girl that actually runs the church, she has cameras, security cameras, surveillance cameras all over around the church. She pulls her cameras up and she starts looking at the camera. Well, I think there was like they're 5-minute videos, 5-minute clips. And out of that 5-minute clips, there's 3, I want to say it was 3 minutes. I might have that wrong. But I think it was 3 minutes that were missing from the actual 5-minute video. But what you see is you see me standing at one corner of the actual church, and then almost you see me like almost like floating to the other side of the church, and then I'm standing there again. But you see like a trail behind me as I'm moving across the church on the video. And right around that time, you have those like that time that's missing, like those 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it was, that's missing from that video. So that was weird. We start kind of looking back at all this time loss that we have, and we start thinking like, hey, listen, like is it something that has to do with, these encounters that we've been having? Is there something that's still with us? It's like kind of traveling with us in a way, regarding these different weird UFO encounters that we had this past week, especially with all these weird people that we met that are just randomly appearing out of the blue. That leads us like second part of that investigation where we started getting EVPs and even spirit box communication that's coming through and saying Chris crash, Scott crash, Chris crash, Scott crash. So we keep getting this coming through the spirit box. Chris crash, Scott crash. It's a tongue twister, but it kept saying it like over and over again. So at this point now we're like a little on edge because we have to drive 30 minutes back to the hotel on this dark mountainy road with no lights anywhere, no street lights, no nothing. So we finish our investigation. We go down to the basement. We finish the investigation down in the basement, and Scott's telling the story to the owner of that church about the tunnel investigation that we had, and he's going into this whole story about the ABCs that we captured and how there was like the ABC alphabet on the wall. Because I think he started with the ABCD, and he asked for the spirit to continue to communicate by saying like EFG, HIJK, LMNOP. And once he got to ABCD, he got the communication coming through the spirit box saying the EF, it continued the entire alphabet.
Right. Wow.
Well, while we're walking through the tunnel, on the tunnel, there's the alphabet, and in red you have ABCD, and then the EFG and the continued alphabet is in white. So that was kind of like a coincidence, being that he stopped on D, that continued to, give them the response to their spirit box. But then you have this graffiti on the wall, which is ABCD in red, and then the entire.
Weird synchronicity. Yeah.
It is. So he was telling her the story, and apparently I wasn't paying attention, or I was completely gone. And as he's telling her the story, I'm listening. I'm telling you, like, I'm listening to the story, and I didn't hear that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So once he's done telling the story, I go back. I'm like, oh, yeah, you didn't tell her the best part. Did you tell her about the ABC? And they all look at me. They're like, dude, like, are you all right? Like, he literally just told us that part of the story. And I completely, like, I just wasn't there. I didn't hear that part of the story, which kind of goes back to the whole part of him with the EVPs in the truck,
Right.
which he didn't realize till the last podcast we did that we were talking about. And he's like, wait, you guys did that? Like, yeah, you like sitting in the car with us. So that fast forward, we're continuing to fast forward into the night. We get to the end of the investigation. We start driving back. Now, being that we kept getting the whole crash message coming through the spirit box, I'm being very weary on how to drive. I'm driving very slow. I'm looking at everything.
Right.
So just being extra careful just in case. I don't know if it was a warning or whatever the case may be. And did he tell you what we saw?
Yeah, he said that you ended up seeing what looked like a portal. You were seeing more like a door. He was seeing more like a sphere, or vice versa.
So what I saw was the best way that I can visually explain it. Have you ever seen Doctor Strange when he does that weird thing with his hand and you see all the sparks coming out?
Sparkly,
like
yeah.
That's what I saw in the middle of the road, just above my windshield of the car or the truck as we're driving by. He saw the same exact thing, according to him, but it was on the side of the road, like off to his side.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I saw it, I'm staring at this thing, and I'm like, oh, crap, is this like what this thing was telling us about? So I kind of like speed up and like kind of go through it before this whole thing starts forming. And we didn't say nothing. We completely were both extremely quiet, and I just happened to look over, and he's staring at me. I feel his eyes. He's staring right back at me. He's like, please tell me you didn't see that. I said, you mean like the weird portal thing that was opening in the middle of the road? And he's like, yeah, that. And then at that point, everything just started like hitting us. The weird guy we met over at the tunnel, the Space Force guy we met, all of these weird interactions that we had throughout the entire trip. At this point, we're paranoid. We're driving back extremely paranoid, extremely slow. We get to the hotel room, and we realize, first floor hotel room, the ceiling to that hotel room was like 14 feet. Like, it was a tall ceiling.
Right.
Extremely tall for a hotel room, which was another weird thing. He looks over, he's like, all right, we're going to go to sleep tonight, and I don't know if we're going to wake up tomorrow. You have your piece on you? I'm like, yeah, I got my piece. We're good. I slept holding the piece. I was like, yeah, we're listen, if somebody comes in that door, we're not going out without a fight.
Okay.
And, long story short, we ended up waking up in the morning and drove back and continued to kind of reminisce on that whole, all of those experiences.
Well, Chris, you see these things, you open yourself up to it, open Scott up to it. I know Scotty walked through that door all on his own and wanted to have these experiences. When you have something and then this many related incidents back to back, does it give you pause? Do you ever think maybe this is not a button I should keep pushing?
Yes. And no at the same time, because I want to know more. Like, I literally want to kind of understand what's going on out there.
When you go to summon these things, to try to interact, is there any protocol you put into play? Are you doing a prayer beforehand? Are you speaking out loud? Is it simply staring at a portion of the sky only? Walk us through how somebody here listening or watching the live video could possibly do this on their own.
So the way I do it, I have more of a clear mind when I go outside. And I focus in a specific area, and I keep telling myself in my head, like, there's going to be something that appears there, and I'm giving myself a specific area. I'm not looking at the entire sky as a whole. I'm only focusing on smaller areas of the sky.
Mhm.
And as I'm focusing on that area in my head, I'm telling myself, I'm going to see this, I'm going to see that. And as I'm doing that, these things will appear. You'll see like these weird lights, and then you'll see one. And after you see one, you start seeing a whole bunch of them just start to
Right.
come around.
Now, Chris,
And
when
you
you
start,
do that, if you're with somebody, do you tell them where you're going to focus, or do you just focus and then when they start appearing, you point them out so that
the,
people can have this moment with you instead of you influencing them by telling them, I'm going to look here and we're going to look for this kind of craft in case it is a form of mass hysteria.
paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way I did it with Scott and my buddy Sean, I told him to just specifically focus in their own areas while I focus in my own area,
Okay.
looking at it. And when I started noticing it, I would point them out for them so they can see it. But right after I started noticing them was when they all started noticing it in their perspective little areas that they were looking
In their
at.
quadrant. Right.
Yep. And that's what made it even cooler because it
Do you
wasn't
speak
something
to
that
them? Do you mentally, telepathically try to send them messages like, I'm watching, thank you for showing me? Do you speak it out loud?
I've tried telepathically, not out loud.
Okay.
And usually when I'm doing that is usually when I have the laser out too, like when I'm playing with the lasers. And in my head, a lot of times what I'm trying to tell them to do is to like give me some sort of, I don't know, like flashback. And it's happened. We've gotten the flashback. We've gotten the brighter lights. We've gotten the lights that came closer to us.
Mm-hmm.
But usually when that happens, like I'm thinking about it in my head for it to happen, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Um,
So a lot of it is that intention setting. It's that manifestation, if you will.
right. And that telepathic like communication per se.
Okay.
Like telepathically connecting to these beings that you obviously don't know anything about.
Sure.
But it's interesting, and honestly, I kind of want to learn more and like try to understand it a little better.
Is this something then, are they always at a very comfortably safe distance where it's, like a grain of sand or a small, head of a pin that you're communicating with, or do they come closer? What is the closest one of these craft or light anomalies has actually gotten to you, aside from the thing you saw opening up on the middle of the road?
Yeah, so the closest one have been those weird orange lights
Okay.
that have played with each other. Like I said, I mean, they were so close and it looked like a plane was getting ready to fly above me. And, it wasn't a plane. It wasn't two wings. It was just two specific lights that were flying in tandem. And they were flying so well with each other, made it look like the wings of an airplane as it's coming forward. And it wasn't until, it got closer that they did these weird lights, weird dance, and then shoot off. Like I said, that happened 3 times, and all 3 times, like the first time just was random. I wasn't thinking about anything. I just happened to see him in the sky. And then every other time that I thought about it or I spoke it out loud and explained to the people that I was with, it wasn't until I was explaining that to them that these things would reappear and redo that whole like little course of dancing and disappearing again. So I started doing some research on those lights too, and I started noticing like I'm sure you've heard like Project Blue Book back in the day, and they
Right.
talk about these weird light anomalies. There was one specific incident that these lights happened to fly over the White House. And at that time, they weren't able to do anything, and they still can't do anything because they couldn't keep up with the speed of these lights.
Right.
And from the story that I've read, was these lights continued to fly over the White House and doing the weird same dance that I saw. They would talk about doing the dance and flying around each other and then shooting off and disappearing, which sounds very similar to the experience that I had.
Your job is a stressful job. It's something that you've seen many things in life that most people should never have to see. And you deal with those. You're going out there and you're being affected and impacted by the strange phenomena that you're witnessing. But because of the high strangeness of your career, I think maybe you're built a little different than the layperson, right? The stay-at-home mom, the dentist, the person that might not be as adrenaline junkie like. I don't know how else to expand upon that, but do you think that just the normal run of the mill personality, the radio show host, the dentist, the chiropractor, the stay-at-home parent, is this a safe thing for them to try? Because to you, to you and Scotty, I listen to your stories. I've talked to Scotty for years. There are things that you two do just nonchalantly. You're like, oh yeah. And then we went into this creepy tunnel and there were sigils and it was dark and you couldn't tell and people are vanishing and it's almost like you're riding the high of the weirdness, to where in my position, you guys are talking about kind of being paranoid. I'm just wondering where I can change my pants and how quick can I get home. Right. And I think a lot of people would be in that same vein. Is this something that others should do? Should people try? Is this what they're waiting for, Chris, is for us to come out and start focusing, start allowing these moments to occur to prepare us for something bigger? What's your takeaway from all of this?
My takeaway with it would have to be that if you're willing to try this and if you're willing to do it, you should at least be in a right state of mind while you're doing it.
But what's the right state of mind, Chris? I tell people all the time as paranormal investigators, if you're going to be going into a place that's paranormally active, I don't think if you've had a fight with your significant other, your kids, your boss, you woke up, stubbed your toe, stepped in a pile of dog shit on the way out the door, threw up on your way into work, you're mentally maybe not in the place you should be doing these type of things. Because I think that if you're kind of living in a chaotic moment, it can bring about bad things or negative energy.
So, yeah, I mean, like I would say, like in the right state of mind, meaning like you're relaxed, you're willing to be open-minded to the things that you're going to see. Mm-hmm. It's also about your intention, I think. If you're coming in with the right intentions of maybe wanting to communicate or trying to understand what you're trying to see, or if it even appears, I feel that your intention kind of leads the interaction of what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. When I've done this, my intentions have always been like, I just want to see them. I want to see them fly by, and I want to be able to show somebody else that I'm seeing these things. And literally that's what happens.
But now it's going beyond just craft. You're out there seeing craft in the sky, hearing something stalking you, sensing, feeling that there's something unseen very close in presence to you.
Yeah, but it leads me back to the paranormal aspect of things too. Like, how do you know, like when you're dealing with these beings, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. How do you know they're there without being able to use your body as a tool?
But as somebody who's interested in this, you see what appears to be a portal, you see these things opening up. Why not stop? Why not? That is the moment Chris Mendace gets to take it to the next level. You get to see that moment. Maybe this is what let's show him. We're ready. He keeps looking. Right. And then they start to open it and you drive away. Are you afraid that by doing something like that, you're pulling yourself out of the moment? Or is that inner cop voice, that Scotty talks about pinging and you're like, oh, this is probably not a safe environment for me to stop my vehicle right now.
So at that point, when we saw that weird, I guess portal is the best way to explain it, mm-hmm. trying to open up, I was thinking about the car crash and what we were hearing the entire time. So that's what I sped up. But if I'd have known it would have been something like that was trying to show itself to us, I honestly would have tried to like either pull over to the side of the road or stop and see exactly like what it was. Because I mean, how many times I'm doing this to try to understand it and try to see like what is actually happening or what can I take from this. And that would have been the perfect moment to actually like try to understand it. But obviously having that little paranoid, like being paranoid of that car crash, right. Everything else that came along with it, it was just like, it was a fight or flight. And we were definitely flying. Like we were driving away. We weren't going to stop.
Loki from the chat room, she asks, Chris, are you sure you or Scott maybe made those portals? Maybe it's your focus and intention that created that phenomenon.
I will say this: anytime me and Scott are together, we have some very weird things that happen, and it's It's not always it's not always like UFO related, like even paranormal. Like this last time we just went to the Pine Barrens. We were investigating the Pine Barrens, and once again we have some other random person come up to us. He says, "Dude, like this never happens to me when I'm by myself, like recording videos. Like I don't understand like why there's people walking up to us while we're recording these videos." So his go-to question now is, are you part of the CIA? Anytime he talks to anybody, if anybody approaches us, that's the question he's asking. But
but we also live in a different era now, Chris, where there are influencers all over. And I will walking through a park, I'll see somebody with a phone on a stick talking and doing something, and people will go up and acknowledge that person. And Chris, I watch your shows, I watch your TikTok, I love you, man, blah, blah, blah. So people now are more aware of those moments because there are so many influencers and people filming moments, and they want to kind of hear what's going on and be a part of that. So I'm not quite as surprised that people would approach you, especially if you look like you're in investigation mode and you're filming something.
Yeah. And I listen, that's the skeptical mind in me. So like I think of that stuff too. But what makes it weird is the simple fact that these people tend to know a little more about you without knowing any of your social media supposedly or anything like that. And that's what makes it a little more interesting in my eyes. Like
Sean from Hill City Paranormal says energy is everything. When two investigators with the same intent get together, they can summon things beyond the dimension. And there very well could be something to that, right? That I've been in large investigations where people are like, we're not going to have anything happen. You're not going to hear a ghost or see a ghost. There's 20 people crammed in this hotel. And I tell them, no, sometimes it's this togetherness. It's this mass intent, this mass manifestation that energizes a place and gives the spirit the realm to work in, to be heard, to be seen. So I do think that there is something to when two or more come together. Look, even in the action of prayer in a religious cycle, right? When you come two or more together in prayer, it becomes a more powerful action.
Right. And I agree with that. Now, Sean, who just wrote that, is actually Sean, the Sean that was with us during those encounters that we had in Pennsylvania. He was the third guy that was in the truck with us when he was doing the EVP session that Scott doesn't remember. He was the one actually doing the EVP session.
Beyond Normal Radio Show says you'd be surprised when someone puts intentions into something, from simple house cleansing to opening a portal into the unknown. Yeah, that's where I start to draw the line. Is I often wonder, are there times that are pushing for answers endangers us and endangers the environment around us, because we don't know the power of physics. We don't know the power of metaphysics. And if there is this grand change that's not focused on necessarily something for the good, if you've got a bunch of people who are out, but they're terrified and they're focused on seeing a UFO, are they calling something that's going to have a much more malevolent intent?
Right.
I concerned about that when I have people that are part of a group and they're worried about demons, and I just say, then this is not for you. Don't investigate, because I don't want you fretting so much that you feed that line and that brings something to us because it knows you're here and it knows you're afraid.
And that's kind of interesting you say that, because I notice a lot of people that investigate and always talk about demons and are always focusing on that aspect of things. They start having these experiences. They start having supposedly like demonic experiences, and they see this and they see eyes popping up and all of this other stuff that somehow they're the only people that can see. And that's kind of where I think like paranoia like plays effect into that investigation, because now you're creating that with your own mind and you're causing these things to happen. But it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I've had that same mentality for quite some time now.
I appreciate you coming on tonight, Chris, and sharing some of your insights on this. And I was part of a TV series, Paranormal State. You brought up Penn State earlier, and I did a UFO summoning and program with them. The cast, we did a whole episode out at the Assetti Ranch, and we captured some really phenomenal footage and reactions, and had just some I promise you, Darklings, everything you see in that episode is exactly how it went down when I was there in its presence. None of it was fake. None of it was manufactured. It was straight up bizarre and amazing all at the same time. I've been to a SETI Ranch 3 times and have watched the power of intention work on summoning these things. Large groups of people focused, and it's like a light show in the sky over Disney, watching these things dance and move about and watching the clouds interact. It is definitely, and I've been so intrigued by so many elements of this. But again, I also need to keep myself in check. I'm fearful of being enticed by the light, if you will, that might lead to something a little bit more destructive. And I hate having that fear. I hate having that wall up, but I also feel like I don't know exactly what this is that I'm dealing with. And by allowing myself to open to it fully, what could we witness? I did an episode of Ghost Adventures where we were in Arizona at it's like, I think Stardust Ranch, I think it was called. And they left me alone on a mountaintop where motherships are seen. And I did a prayer summoning and caught something flying towards me that then took off like a shot. Very interesting, setting the intent on that as well. So these are moments I've had, but they do cause me to pause. I always keep my eyes to the skies, but I don't notice things as much. And I wonder if it is because I've got that barrier of fear, for lack of a better word, a barrier of, I want to see, I want to have this experience, but I'm also afraid of what it could bring about. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that at all you'd like to share with us before we wrap up this evening?
I guess it's more of a cautious feeling. You're wanting to know more, but at the same time, like, yeah, you're scared. But I try to just live on the moment. I try to figure out exactly like what's going on and see if things could possibly lead to bigger and like brighter things. But
And I've got listeners like Alonzo who are like, I wanted Dave to get abducted on that show. Them Grays weren't messing around.
That's funny. Well, listen, if you ever want to go, like, you let me know when. We'll meet up somewhere. And
yeah, next time I come out to Napanock to do an event at the Shanley, I'll come in a couple days early. We'll have to go with Scotty and hit up some of these locations and try to have these moments. I am heading off to Skinwalker Ranch and Space Wolf Ranch in about a month in Utah, and I'm going to try using these principles. I was very lucky. I was part of the Chris Jericho cruise, the very first one. I've been on every one since, but we did a UFO summoning at sea and had a very strange experience with lights that we cannot explain. And I had crew members who came to watch us do the summoning, and everybody's kind of tongue in cheek. And my son, who is fascinated by what I do but thinks I'm a loon, former Navy guy, when we started seeing these lights and this one light kind of dipping and going up and then dipping down and going up, I said, could it be that the boat is pitching in a way and it's making the optical illusion? He goes, old man, there's another light next to it that's not doing anything but flying straight. This makes no sense. What we're seeing makes no sense. And I turned to the people that worked on the ship and the cruise ship, and I said, have you ever seen something like this? Is there an island over there or something? And they're like, no, I've never seen anything like that. And it's not another cruise ship, because you could see what other cruise ships look like out on the ocean at night. These were 2 balls of light that were streaming along maybe a mile out from where we were at a safe distance. There is something to that power of coming together to try to do something.
Right. So I'll tell you a funny story about that. So you're mentioning these UFOs and the light and the water, and one of the most famous UFO videos prior to all of these new documents being released and everything was a place that was 10 minutes from my house in Puerto Rico, in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. It was the UFO that was actually captured by the U.S. on their thermal cameras that they were actually tracking through the entire Aguadilla airport and Aguadilla section of Puerto Rico. And they tracked it with the airplane, and they actually watched it go inside the water and disappear in the water. And that was documented on video, and it was released out to the public, 10, 15 years ago. But
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few military personnel in the Navy that witness things large. They'd be out calm waters, out doing a military exercise when suddenly lights would light up in the ocean underneath them, and they would think, "What the hell have we got ourselves into?" And then it would seem like the night sky, everything went still around them, and then these lights would eject out of the water and be gone in brief. You just boom, they were gone in seconds without making a sound, without causing massive tsunami waves or anything. But these massive craft and light would just burst forth from the water. Very strange. And it what's so unsettling to me is how many times it happens around naval ships and nuclear ships and subs that are witnessing this, because it seems like that has the potential to go horribly wrong.
let me ask you this question, because you clearly have done this before too. Do you think an area that's based on like a nuclear plant or anything that's nuclear, like you're talking about, do you think those areas have a higher probability of being able to see these types of aircrafts?
I think so. Look at how many UFO sightings are seen around military bases. So it's interesting because we can say, one, that's because they're testing craft that we don't need to know about and our enemies don't need to know about. The stealth bomber, people talked about this large bat-shaped UFO for years before the government finally gave in and admitted it was one of theirs. There are craft that can do remarkable things. And now from China and a few other countries have shown some of their supersonic weaponry, things that are able to, they're not manned, but they're able to do breakneck speeds and change direction and hit with pinpoint accuracy what they're aiming for. It's pretty terrifying. So I think that around these installations, it would make sense that if these beings are using our planet either as a layover, an energy spotter source, and many of them may be leeching off nuclear energy to, I guess, I don't know, energize their craft, but also there to make sure we don't make the ultimate mistake. And that's why there have been those flex moments when they have shut down power at power plants and nuclear facilities and turn them on, getting ready to launch missiles, only to, with seconds left, to abort the mission. I get a feeling sometimes it's showing us, you're not such a big shot. Right. You're not so powerful. Just remember, at any time we can do this to you and we can stop this. So I do think that around those facilities, it would make sense that there's going to be more activity.
Now, what's your thought with ley lines?
Again, I don't know. I like the concepts. I think it's interesting. There's actual power points and positions, things even like Disneyland, right, was created on a ley line. But again, I don't know how much of that is metaphysical mumbo jumbo and how much of it is legitimately something. But when you start watching these parallels and you follow along some specific parallels, there is a lot more activity in some realms than others. And it's surrounding the earth in those areas that it seems it's more active. So there must be something to that. I think there are power source points, portals, energetic openings. It would make sense that if there is multidimensional activity and energies and beings, there has to be a way for them to come and go.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, some of the stories that I've heard too, are the simple fact that those ley lines are what could be powering some of these ships.
Right.
They travel on those specific ley lines supposedly to power their ships and continue to fly. But I guess we'll never know. Or
I know it's all conjecture until it's not, right? It's all wonderment and what could be. Chris, thank you for coming on and sharing with us tonight. And I'll take you up on that. We'll get together and go out with Scotty and see what we can encounter together.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me on, and it's been a pleasure, and it's been awesome.
Give yourself a moment to plug. Is there? Can people follow you? I know we have a link up to your social media page on today's program guide. Can they follow you? Do you do programs? Do you make appearances, places that they can come talk with you? Yeah,
of course. So you guys can just follow me at all my social media pages are Supernatural Untold Stories. You just search that and it'll pop up. Right now I've just been traveling and doing some paranormal videos and been doing some stuff with Scott. And yeah, I mean, I don't have any events coming up as of right now, but if I do, I'll post them all on my website, supernaturaluntoldstories.com.
Cool. We will we'll get you out here to Minnesota too to investigate the haunted Palmer House Hotel, and right down the road is a huge Bigfoot center, and not too far from there is the sighting of one of the most incredible UFO sightings and experiences of all time. So maybe we'll have to do the trifecta trip one weekend and have you guys come out. All right.
You
Thank
let me
you,
know
Chris.
when, and I'm down.
Will
I'll
do,
take
buddy.
off work and be there in a heartbeat.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Have a
All
great
right.
rest of your night, and we'll look forward to having a conversation and a meeting with you again in the future. Chris Mendace has spent years exploring the possibility that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence does not have to happen by chance. Close encounters of the fifth kind, whether it's meditation, focused intention, human-initiated communication, is an attempt to summon UFOs, UAPs, and unknown beings into our skies. Perhaps not summoning them. Maybe what we're missing out on is opening our eyes for the first time and allowing ourselves the clarity to see what is always there. And in this episode, we are lucky to have Chris share his experiences, the events he believed occurred in direct response to these contact sessions, and the extraordinary implications of something beyond Earth, recognizing and answering human invitation and attention. If contact can truly be initiated, humanity may no longer be waiting for disclosure. We may be creating it ourselves. Thank you all for tuning in, and may the darkness of this world be just a little brighter with the information that we share here every week on our Paranormal 60. Until Wednesday, my darklings, live long and prosper. Allons-y.